Do it up, man.
Do it.
Do you guys like Closure?
Closure?
Closure? Not the movie Closer.
Closers
That.
always be closing.
Well, we can talk about the movie Closer here with my topic because do you want closure in your fiction, whether it's written or television or film? I got here because I was reading a list of movies that had bad endings, and some of them the endings are just bad, but a lot of them the endings just have no closure. But then there's a lot of movies that are fantastic, but also the movies have no closure. And so, do you really need that? Does the
viewer feel a sense of closure, even though the movie doesn't actually provide it?
And that's the other thing, right? There's a difference between the narrative you see on the screen or the narrative you experience in the written words and the story. A lot of the movies that famously don't have closure that we could talk about, The Thing is one that I really like, the Kurt Russell Thing, where at the end it's Kurt Russell and I forget who, and they're supposedly just sitting there waiting to die, right? But they've got the bottle of vodka, and one of the last things you see is Kurt Russell offer the other guy the vodka. But what if Kurt Russell filled that vodka with gasoline when he was making Molotov cocktails earlier in The Thing, and the scene you don't get to see off camera is if that guy is the Thing and he drinks gasoline, as we saw earlier, that creature's going to freak out. Yeah. So Kurt Russell's maybe about to discover whether or not but then it cuts to black.
They do imply heavily that it could be either of them, though, don't they?
So you don't get to,
correctly?
And then you're supposed to leave it with nothing. But the vodka hint is more closure than it might be, because if you're the Thing, and you know that bottle's not got vodka in it because you were just holding it, you don't offer it to the other guy. Because then the other guy's going to know it's also not vodka, and he's going to be wondering the whole time. So yeah, it's like, so if you're Kurt Russell is the human, because if it's,
okay. I think an interesting,
or maybe not. The movie's got
recently.
No closure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because what I'm going to go to it isn't about intended lack of closure. Someone was writing an opinion piece I read the other day about George R.R. Martin doesn't owe you closure for Game of Thrones. He doesn't owe you an ending.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He obviously doesn't, because he's very ill. Like, he doesn't owe someone his last remaining years because he started telling a story.
Just like Terry Pratchett doesn't owe us more novels.
Exactly. Like, just because someone doesn't manage to complete their opus, does that mean that they've let you down? Like, should he be working day and night, working his fingers to the bone, trying to finish these stories because he may not have long left on the earth?
I think to satisfy his own sort of legacy, he'd want to,
Yeah, let's be fair. He takes a lot of flack.
Yeah.
He obviously wants the story to be completed.
Yeah,
he knows what's going to happen. He wants it to, because especially with the success it's had, he wants it all out there.
Yeah.
But whether or not it happens, is kind of insignificant. Like, I'm a huge fan of the books. I love the books. They've been great. They've actually taught me a lot about life, strangely enough, just about how your perception of people might not actually be what's happening behind the scenes.
I like that.
It's really cool about that.
I learned that from David Lynch, which brings us to our next closure. But
Mulholland Drive, all the Lynch stuff, Twin Peaks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
New episode tonight, but sorry, Tom. Wait, Tom, you were
anyways,
please.
Even as a fan, I'd love to see it finished, but I think I agree. He doesn't owe me anything.
No.
Same with any artist. They've completed something. You get to then experience it. Just be happy you got that. Whether or not they produce anything else beyond that is kind of your ego getting the best of you.
Yeah.
So we've asked this other question before, I guess, then, but is the answer really I want closure or I don't want closure, depending on what the artist intended?
I think it's it's genre dependent. I know, for me, I like when I'm watching a movie or something. I like it to have a nice wrap up. That was a good movie. I like it to.
Guardians 2 had that. Everything was in a pretty bow, and I'm just like, come on.
Unless the only thing would be if it's a horror movie, if it's a horror movie or a thriller, for example, that sort of adds to that element. If it's got a cliffhanger, the ghost might still be there, right? It's still that complements that genre. But for every other genre that I can think of, I like it to be complete.
Well, and it can leave you hanging like The Thing ending. Another one that I really love is the ending of The Grey.
Another one.
Yeah.
Where Liam Neeson is left. Spoiler alert: Liam Neeson. There's going to be a lot of spoiler alerts. I should have said that.
There's a lot of information about wolves in the
Yeah. But you guys know the ending to The Grey, Where
No,
he
I
tapes up.
don't.
He's
Haven't
got
seen it.
these. Oh well, it's Liam Neeson and a bunch of guys getting stalked by wolves in the
Oh,
Arctic.
cool.
They go down in a plane crash, and in the end, everybody's dead but Liam Neeson, and there's a big old wolf is coming
The
at him,
alpha, yeah.
and he takes a bunch of the liquor bottles from the plane that he's been carrying around, and you kind of think maybe this guy's just waiting to, I don't know, get a little drunk before he gets eaten. But no, he takes all the liquor bottles, tapes them between his fingers, smashes them, and calls the wolf on.
Wolverine.
Does this Wolverine thing, eh?
And
Yeah.
then the movie cuts to black. And it's like, and there is actually a post-credit
So
scene.
they both die.
Well, so how does that movie end? But that's
The wolf
life,
eats him
right?
and then
Like,
dies from his wounds.
Yeah,
They
there
both
you go.
die.
You're right. There you go. But real life has no closure.
Don't care
right?
about you. They will eat
Yeah.
you.
But isn't that sort of the
Entire
appeal
movie's just
to?
him
Isn't
saying
that
things
sort of the
about
appeal
wolves.
to watching movies? Is you want to kind of sit down and escape from life? Is what most people
Did you
want to
like,
do.
Did you like No Country for Old Men, or did you hate it?
I liked
liked
No
it a lot.
Country for Old Men.
I loved
Oh,
that
I love
movie.
that movie.
Yeah.
People hate it apparently because it's got no closure.
Yeah.
It's a
Also
Cormac
has no-
McCarthy novel
yeah.
that was then adapted by the Coen brothers. They're,
What about
they're,
the-
they're going
Yeah.
to play tricks with you, so
I was
it's
gonna say,
psychologically.
what about The Road? That's another one that doesn't really have closure.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great movie.
It has like a weird sense of closure to it, but like in a way where it's like it's not the closure you want, and you know more or less where that story is going from where it leaves off.
And
Is
same with
maybe-
something really easily like accessible, like The Walking Dead. How are you ever going to get closure out of
He's
that?
not. He is.
Can't. It's like
He's
Lost.
trolling you along. Kirkman is trolling you along for as long as he can. Keep buying those comics,
that's-
everybody. I download mine for free.
It's like Scientology. There's no closure. Once you get in there, you just got to keep going and going and going forever.
It's kind of
until-
like we were talking about
Yeah.
before, like with these like these grand movements, like these people expect like an answer, but they get like there's this gated, like the wisdom lies beyond
You
this
know,
door, and if
the
you pay
answer's
this
around the
nominal fee,
corner.
you can
Yeah.
come in and we'll teach you all about it. You
Yeah.
get behind the door, and you almost have to convince yourself there was value. And I think that's kind of what people do with their entertainment sometimes is they've invested in Walking Dead, so like, no, I like it. It's still great.
Yeah.
To be fair, I don't know
Honestly.
that might not be true. I don't watch it anymore.
Well,
I
I
I gave
feel
up when
both
it got,
ways.
when
It's
things
like,
got tough.
I paid $15 to see Guardians 2 in the theater, and in some ways, like, yes, that movie was awesome. Of course,
Yeah,
you
I
want
had
to see
the
it in the
same
big
feelings.
screen, but it's like, no, there wasn't enough there. So many of those Marvel movies, even though they're just like,
I think there was too much
Pop.
there.
like,
I said it.
Maybe
I
across the
mean-
line.
I mean, I didn't want there. I wanted there to be more like open-ended, like ramp me up for more freaking Infinity War stuff. It
Mhm.
was too much. Like, here's the Guardians having a fun little side adventure. Oh, freaking Rocket and Andy from Parks and Rec are having a bit of a spat, but everybody's a happy family at the end, and Drax has a girlfriend.
And I think that could have been the whole story. Like the whole story could have been for me. I didn't need closure on their relationship. I wanted to see a story where they didn't just regurgitate the jokes. I know I'm way off topic at this point, but
No, it's
since we're on the topic, I don't want regurgitated jokes. I don't want the "Why is the rum gone?" 3 from Pirates of the Caribbean 3, where now we've added some new words like "Why is the rum gone?" again and again, 3 times now.
Yeah.
It's always gone. Why is the rum always gone? Like, it doesn't matter how many words and modifiers you add to the sentence. The joke's not gonna recapture the joy you felt the first time you heard it. And they had a bunch of those in Guardians. And I think Disney just loves those jokes because the average audience loves those jokes. The
They're-
average moviegoer goes, "I remember that. I feel smart."
there is that next level to it, and I like. It's more of a Tim and an Eric. It's definitely a Tim Heidecker move where you do the repeated joke thing. It's a Neil Hamburger thing actually, more than a Tim Heidecker thing, where it's like, and I am gonna make the joke again, and it was never a good joke, and it was never gonna land. But when Neil Hamburger makes the same bad joke for like the 100th time, and on cinema at the cinema, you're just like, okay, now it's funny
Yeah.
because Neil just keeps saying
It's
that.
funny for the same reason. It's almost like you're laughing at people who enjoy that kind of humor in the first place. Once you've heard a joke that many times and it's still not funny, it becomes funny because you're laughing at the trope of people repeating the same joke ad nauseum to try and get a laugh. Like you're laughing, it's become satire at that point.
So closure isn't satisfaction, but is closure sort of satisfaction for some? Like when we think we want closure from our fiction, do we want that satisfaction? Fight Club has an ending in the movie and in the book, and they're very different, and they both have closure. But in the book, he ends up, hospitalized in a coma. Is that better closure or worse closure? I feel like that's
Does it
more real
matter?
world.
And yeah, I think
My whole question is bull poop. Fine, Tom.
no, I think there is I'm with you. I don't want closure forced on an author because it's expected and they know they're going to hear an outcry. Harry Potter didn't need a scene at the end where they told us about the marriage and their kids. I didn't care about that chapter. I didn't want to know I'd rather use my imagination like any normal reader, but you have to pander to your lowest common denominator and give them that. And then they got married moment. Otherwise, they're going to cry for the rest of their lives about how they don't know whatever happened to Harry. And she's going to have... So she almost put that on there as a coda to be like, look, I'm not writing another book.
And he lived happily ever after. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm not writing another book, except when I decide to write another book because my lavish lifestyle requires it. And yeah, I didn't want to know, and I didn't know, but I accidentally let it run through, that there is a post-credit scene in The Grey. And although it makes no effing sense, it is Liam Neeson standing there, barely alive, with the corpse of a big-ass wolf in front of him. So then it cuts to black again. So it's like, that's still no closure, sort of. Yeah. Now I know, okay, Liam Neeson
died of exposure.
I was going to say, yeah, so he didn't die from the wolf.
Yes, I glossed over that. But at that point, at the end of that movie, they've wandered away from the plane crash, and their dead is all dead because everybody else has died. Yeah. They're nowhere near where people would be looking for them.
Yeah, the movie is just like watching people die in the wilderness. The movie, like, it's not like there's no adventure to it. They're not. You never think they're going to survive. They never, like Liam Neeson basically says at the beginning, like, we're surviving so that we can be eaten by wolves, and he just keeps repeating that. Like, the wolves they're pack hunters, and they're like, he just has all this information about wolves that he keeps spouting, and he's like, we're definitely going to die by being eaten by wolves. And then at the end, they all die.
That's a pretty good impression.
Eaten by wolves.
Yeah. That's a pretty solid Liam Neeson.
I don't know. I think all of this, like, just to bring it back to the actual question, I think it is totally situational. It can't be as cut and dry. It's more story based. If the story's already good, the closure isn't as necessarily important if you've already got the information out of the story that you're looking for. Sometimes it's just frustrating because there's like something like The Sopranos is super frustrating when it just goes and just ends. You're like, well, is that everything? Is there going to be more? And that's exactly what they wanted you to think.
Yes.
So the story did its purpose. It pissed you off. It's what it was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. But I still think if I was watching some stupid Disney movie that is supposed to be, and the princess marries the prince or whatever, and then that doesn't end up happening, then the audience is going to feel duped.
And Gaston and the Beast run off together.
Yeah, the story has been building to this point, and then it just never ends up getting there. That's just a bad story because it didn't. There comes a point when, as the artist, you still have to pander to what it is you're creating. Like if I'm writing a song, I want to do what's best for the song to tell the story of the song. It's its own thing now. I've created a thing, and I'm just like curating that thing that's already been created. Same with the story. It's you've written the story, and you have to like serve the story.
And all the White Walkers decided they wanted to be friends, and they went home.
Yeah, they tore the wall down, and they all lived happily ever after.
Brace yourselves. You remember when we started that?
My timer, but
yeah, we're probably past my limit. Let's move.
I did want to say one thing before we move on, and just have you ever seen Into the Woods?
Yeah,
it's a story.
That's the Disney one.
No, it was originally who is it?
It's like a Snow White.
It's a musical.
Red Riding Hood.
It's all the fairy tales basically, and the first act in the musical, at the end of the first act before intermission, it's everyone's happy ending. So you have full closure with the first act, and the second act comes back and shows you how their happy ending wasn't actually what they needed; it's what they wanted, and that everything goes terrible because they did everything to get those things. So you can play, I think, with the idea of closure with your audience by giving them at the end of the second act what feels like the end of the third act in any other movie, and then flipping that. Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad
historically does the exact opposite and starts with a guy who is where you'd want someone to be at the end of their story. He's happy, he has a family, he's got a good job, and then it all goes to shit. And by the end, he's back at the beginning of any other story where he's at the bottom. It's a reverse Cinderella.
I just want to know what happened to Badger. Man, I love that character.
I don't even remember Badger.
He makes it.
Yeah. He does make it. Badger's one of the doofus.
They show him at the end, don't
they? He's
in the finale, is he?
He is, because Walt hires him and the other meth friend, and it's. But yeah,
right.
Skinny Pete.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping Badger shows up. That's all I'm saying.